everybody, Trevor here, and welcome to another Top 10 video. This one is long overdue. A long time ago, I made a video giving my honest thoughts on the Big World Big Adventures revamp, and I thought it was an overall mixed bag. It's got things I like and things I dislike. I also thought it wasn't as bad as the Sharon Miller era in terms of boredom and repetitiveness. However, in that video, I left some pauses here and there as well as some awkward editing by mistake because I was new to this new Microsoft Edge video editing software, which was pretty bad to use, so I'm sorry for making those errors years ago. Now, like other eras of a certain franchise, Big World Big Adventures has its duds. So today, we'll be talking about my top 10 absolute worst Thomas episodes from that time. Now before we get started, I just want to say, if you like these episodes, then that's fine. It's just my silly personal opinion, but that doesn't mean they're free of criticism. And like other mediocre eras in the Thomas universe, it does have the potential to be good. Oh, and keep in mind that this video is not for kids because it will contain a couple swear words. I normally don't swear on the internet, but when it comes to stuff like this, I had to let all my anger out. In addition, I will not include two-part specials such as Steam Team to the Rescue because I want those to be a separate video for the future. Now without further ado, let's decipher these terrible BWBA episodes and why they are the worst of the worst. Number 10. Counting on Nia. In this episode, Nia has a hard time reading and understanding numbers, so Annie and Clairvaux decided to teach her how to count. I've decided to make this number 10 because it doesn't make me too angry because it had potential to be a really good episode. Personally, I think that Nia not good at reading numbers will be an excellent flaw for her because not everyone in the world knows how to read numbers in real life. But this episode is such wasted potential because they only did this once with the character. And because Nia's a Mary Sue, she already learned this quickly and confidently without any problem at all. The Unlucky Tug also made a good point that Nia should have a little bit of hatred towards Snow since she's from Kenya. I know that has nothing to do with the episode, but I thought I'd bring it up anyway because the biggest problem with Nia is that she's a Mary Sue, which means she has no flaws. And that's what makes her very bland. Also, if you're into stuff that's like Sesame Street, in terms of learning how to count and read numbers, then this would probably be the perfect Thomas episode for you. But for me, I've seen better. Number 9. Forever and Ever. Like the last candidate, this one doesn't make me 100% angry either because I can kinda understand why Edward needed to be replaced. I mean, it does kinda make sense to make him live near his branch line at Wellsworth. And besides, the owners of Thomas & Friends already ran out of ideas for his starring roles. But what really upsets me about this episode is that Henry decided to move to Vickerstown Sheds for no given explanation. Was it because Rosie was all alone at Vickerstown and needed a roommate or something? Whatever the case, it still makes no sense because Henry's pretty popular too amongst fans. And furthermore, I know how Gordon feels when it comes to change, because I definitely am one of those whiny man children who doesn't like change in general since it's so overwhelming for me. But when it comes to this episode's message about change, it's executed horribly because they're basically saying, change is good, just shut up and accept it. If you want more girl power into the STEAM team, why not use Rosie and Molly to replace Edward and Henry than these two Mary Sues? In addition, wouldn't it be fair to add more berths at Tima's shed so that everyone can fit in? Overall, this episode was terrible in terms of moral execution. I know sometimes change can be a good thing, but if you want Nia and Rebecca to be part of the team, at least have them earn it by going through some trials and errors. Say what you want about Emily, but at least her spot at Tima's Sheds at the end of Calling All Engines was earned, and that she has flaws of her own too. Number 8. Batucada. This would probably be my least favorite episode when it comes to the Brazilian setting. Sure, the Batucada musicians did a great job, and I thought their music was quite entertaining. But the biggest problem I have with this episode is that it stars Thomas. As much as I love the character in general, but the fact that he's trying to find something that will make music is just gimmicky and unnecessary. Also, why couldn't they have Raul or even Gabriella take the role instead? Because after all, they are underrated. In the first half of the episode, Thomas takes the Batucada along with some musical sounding freight cars to the carnival. And in the second half, he tries to find more musical cars only to find a scraping tanker that makes nothing but loud scraping sounds, which not only annoys the people but also the audience, including me. And those are all the reasons why this episode is pretty bad. Number 7. Too Loud Thomas. When it comes to Thomas episodes that take place in Italy, this would probably be my least favorite one in terms of Thomas being annoying as hell. In this story, Thomas wants to learn to sing opera just like Lorenzo and Beppe. The two try to teach him properly, but he just wouldn't do a good job, leading him to eventually lose his voice. There's one thing I do find funny in this episode though. Before Thomas loses his voice, his screeching made the TV screen crack a little bit, which is an example of a fourth wall break. But other than that, this episode is pretty bad. If Thomas can't talk anymore, why couldn't his driver informant explain the situation to Stefano? Wouldn't that have been more realistic? Because after all, the driver's informant are the ones who drive the engines and are the voices of reason. I swear it's the Cher Miller era all over again. Now, I know that Thomas's bad singing is supposed to be a joke, but couldn't they have found a way to make his singing sound less annoying or something? Number 6. Runaway Truck. Also known as Runaway Car in the US, this is a China episode where Yang Bao teaches Thomas about Tai Chi. Yeah, because as we all know, engines can learn Tai Chi just like humans can. Let's talk about Lei for a moment. If there's one positive thing I do like about him, it would be that he's pink, just like that ULP banana van from the Railway series. But other than that, he's pretty bland and forgettable because not only he's a British design, but my biggest problem is that he breaks the laws of physics when it comes to this episode. For example, when Thomas attempts to save him from a runaway accident, he just flips up in the air and as he lands back on the ground, he spins around upside down. How does that make any sense whatsoever? Not to mention it gives me motion sickness just watching him bounce like that. I know Lei is supposed to be accident prone, but that doesn't mean he has to break the laws of physics. Not to mention that engines don't do Tai Chi because that's more of a human thing. However, like Counting on Nia, it does have the potential to be really good if it was more realistic and not so cartoony. But I decided to make this number 6 anyway because it completely breaks the laws of physics, as I said a couple of times before. Number 5. The Water Wheel. Like Runaway Truck, this one also breaks the laws of physics. While it is interesting to show the audience that bamboo can be made into a lot of things including a flute and a bike, but the chase scene itself was just unrealistic, just like most of the episodes in this era. Please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I don't think a water wheel made of bamboo can bounce high in the air like that because it would be a little too heavy. Also, like the other dream sequences in the show, this one where Thomas is made of bamboo is just filler, and in real life, he can't float on water, otherwise his firebox would go out. Oh, and does anyone remember that Chinese diesel engine that first appeared in the movie? Well, sadly, this is the only episode that she's in, and for some reason, she wasn't given a name, just like most of the other minor characters. What the hell? Now let's get into the big ones, which are the next 4 on this list because they are that bad. Number 4. What Rebecca Does. When it comes to Rebecca episodes, this would be my least favorite one because not only Rebecca's a Mary Sue just like Nia, but because of this one dream sequence that's extremely cringeworthy. First of all, did Rebecca meet Diesel 10 at one point in the series? Because she suddenly has Pinchy attached to her now along with Marion's shovel, Harvey's crane arm, and some fire hoses. And what's worse is that during that scene, all the engines, including Harvey, Marion, Belle, and Percy, were bouncing up and down as if they're listening to hip-hop. This is what happens when you try way too hard to be hip with the kids. It's also why I hate the modern era of animation sometimes. And again, like Nia, Rebecca is also bland. She's just a generic happy-go-lucky character who's basically Molly 2.0. Oh, and the part where she says to Marion that she's not as special as her, Belle, Harvey, and all the other characters in the show. And I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. You're not as special as Molly, because Molly is not only original, but at least she has flaws. More flaws than you could. Number 3. Thomas's Animal Friends. Hey, do you want to see a ripoff of Thomas's Animal Arc but shittier? Then why not watch Thomas's Animal Friends? In this story, after Thomas dresses up like a monkey, everyone teases him about it, and Rebecca assures him and helps him try to imagine his other friends as animals, like Gordon as an elephant, James as a lion, Percy as a panda, and Rebecca as a leopard. This episode was basically made to sell toys, nothing else. But the worst part of this is, it's the very last episode of the entire original series! How could you end this on such a negative note, Mattel? I know some people have said that Thomas and the Royal Engine serves as the series finale, but as I've stated before, I'm not counting double-length specials because I'm saving those for another day. But yeah, I can agree that Thomas and the Royal Engine would make a better series finale than this monstrosity. Now, I would put this as number 1, but there are 2 more I think are even worse than this in terms of continuity. So let's get to those, shall we? Number 2. Thomas and the Dragon. This is, in my opinion, the worst China episode because not only it's a ripoff of Thomas, Percy, and the Dragon from Season 3, but because Thomas should know better than to be scared of dragons. Yes, it's even worse than Runaway Truck and the Water Wheel in terms of continuity. Also, why couldn't they have brought back the original Chinese dragon from Season 3 instead of introducing us to this red one? Sure, it does look kinda cool to some people, but for me, it's such a wasted opportunity to not bring back the original yellow version. I mean, it would have been a nice throwback to the classic series, but no, they had to use an original design. Oh, and the dream sequence itself is just filler, just like all the others in this era. I know I'm sounding like a broken record when it comes to these fantasies, but it's one of my biggest pet peeves in this era. Oh, and this is not How to Train Your Dragon, folks. However, despite all the negatives here, there is one thing I do like about this episode. It would be the lion costume, which I thought looks pretty cool. But other than that, this episode is just terrible, and there's no reason to watch it twice. But before I get to my number 1 pick, here are a bunch of dishonorable mentions. Nia and the Unfriendly Elephant. It got beat out by Forever and Ever and Counting on Nia because I still consider those 2 worse than that. Rosie is Red. I actually kind of like this episode, to be honest with you. I can understand why people don't like romance in general, but I'm one of those Thomas fans that likes to ship characters such as Thomas and Rosie or Thomas and Ashima, just for kicks. And spoiler alert, this will be on the best Big World Big Adventures episodes list on my channel. The Other Big Engine. My only problem with this episode is that even though I like Gustavo's basis in that he runs on an electric railway line in Brazil, but he's basically a plot device for the episode. Not to mention that his Trackmaster model looks off. But other than those things, this is an okay episode in my opinion. Laid Back Shane. While it does have that 3 strikes and you're out formula, but I can't really hate Shane because he's such an interesting character in terms of design. Sure, his voice can be annoying sometimes, but at least he's not mean like Ace the Racer was in the movie. Thomas's Not So Lucky Day. Sure, it may be a ripoff of Percy's Lucky Day from Season 17, but I still think Too Loud Thomas is worse in terms of Thomas being a really annoying protagonist. Thomas in the Wild. This one is so-so, but at the same time, it could have been more interesting if there was something more exciting going on than just Thomas looking at pandas. And the number 1 absolute worst episode in the Big World Big Adventures era is Thomas Makes a Mistake. Whoo boy, where to start with this one? My biggest gripe with this episode is that it's just like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other episodes starring Thomas where he acts as the idiot of the show. In other words, it's not original! I mean, I know Thomas makes a lot of mistakes in the past and that he can be forgetful like Sydney, but that's the biggest problem with this episode. Couldn't have they used a different character instead of, like, either Ashima or Rajiv for the role? I know they're smarter than Thomas, but I'm actually kind of sick of Thomas being the idiotic protagonist in these types of episodes. Thomas Makes a Mistake is just like Wonky Whistle but fast-paced, and I honestly can't tell which one of these is worse than the other because they're so alike. Not only that this is the worst India episode, but it's the absolute worst of the Big World Big Adventures era in terms of unoriginality. It does not deserve to exist whatsoever. And I suggest you stay away from it as much as possible, because it's that bad. Alright, I'm calmed down now. Now let's move on to the conclusion. Let me know in the comments section on which of these episodes are your least favorite. Do you agree with my list, or do you have your own personal preference? Next time, I will discuss the good episodes from Big World Big Adventures. But first, I need to take a summer vacation to Minnesota to see family. Oh, and thanks for over 34,000 subscribers. It really helps me a lot. This is Trevor Davis, and I'll see you all in July.